Okay, hi, this is Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Session podcast. And today my guest is Clay Vermulm. Is that correct?
Yep, you got it.
All right, awesome. All right, man. So let's talk about what you have going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of things going on. I'm a podcaster, an author, and an editor, all in the horror genre. And then I'm also the program coordinator for the Seattle Horror Writers Association. So I do a lot of events and stuff. We just came off of a big Pacific Northwest horror convention called Crypticon Seattle. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the Crypticon conventions, with the Seattle one. I edit the anthology and the writing contest every year for that, and then usually manage a couple tables. So that's been kind of taking up all my brain space lately. But two books coming out this summer, so I'm also in the middle of promo for all that. I've got a book coming out through Dark Forest Press from Bellingham, Washington, called
Are
Crevasse.
they
And
related to Dark Horse Comics at all?
no, Dark Forest. Um,
Oh, Dark
Definitely.
Forest. Okay.
Yeah, and they're kind of a newer indie press. They're still pretty small, just kind of getting going. So it's exciting to be one of their flagship authors, kind of. And it's a rock climbing horror novella coming out. It's titled Crevasse. Um,
What's a rock climbing horror novella?
yeah, so I'm a big rock climber and outdoors person, so I have a lot of experience out in the Washington mountains. And this story is about some climbers who go to try a hard route in the Southern Pickets, which is a real place in Washington, in the North Cascades. And while they're out there, they run into some supernatural folk horror elements. So it's kind of a mix of that supernatural thriller, and adventure and horror. So it's a
Do
lot
you
of fun.
base the supernatural off of any like local legends or local monsters, or are you creating your own?
It's kind of my own take on some Native American folklore that I'm a big fan of. It's similar in a lot of ways to like a Wendigo.
Right.
But it is not. It's definitely like my own take on it. Not meant to be like a letter perfect Wendigo from the lore.
Okay, and does it take place in modern times?
Yep, modern times. It's rock climbers and pretty much takes place in like 2022 when I wrote it.
Okay, when you say novella, like when it's paperback, how many pages would it be?
Yeah, so it's about, I think it comes out to about 100 pages, so it's pretty small, but it's a nice quick read. The audiobook is also available on Audible, and that's like, I think it's less than 3 hours long. So it's nice for if you just want to read some short, kind of breakneck horror, and especially if you're a big fan of like mountaineering or climbing as well, because it kind of has a lot of both elements. A lot of the story is actually about the climb, so it's a
Well,
lot of fun.
there's a ton of like myth and lore and everything around mountain climbing, especially like Mount Everest with all the dead bodies up there and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. The death zone up there is crazy, and just a place where it's basically another planet, We just cannot exist there, just like the bottom of the ocean. We still try though. We still try. So there's a lot of horror to be mined out of that whole situation.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and just on a side note, that we're always discovering stuff we thought died like 100 million years ago,
Mm-hmm.
like massive sharks and giant squids and stuff like that.
Y-
Is that more or less kind of the focus of all your stuff, like kind of like ancient stuff brought to life or whatever? Or do you do various different diverse topics?
I definitely cover lots of different topics in my writing. I write a lot of short fiction. So my other book coming out this summer in July is called Rain Shadows, and that's all short stories that take place in the Pacific Northwest. They all take place in Washington. Um,
Okay.
and that covers a wide variety of stuff. I mean, I have one like post-apocalypse story. The apocalypse happened because of like a demon uprising, essentially, and the story
A
takes
demon
place on like a.
uprising. What's the core premise behind the demon uprising?
Yeah, so I kind of went with almost a more Japanese style demon where they're like a force of nature. They're like a spirit realm representative essentially of like nature coming out and exerting its power over mankind. So there's
Okay.
like a bunch of different elemental demons, and they kind of inhabit their own element. So the people in this
Is it kind of
story,
like have you seen the movie Pacific Rim?
yeah, I have seen Pacific
So
Rim.
you know how it actually turns out they come from another dimension? Is
Hmm.
it kind of something like that?
Yeah,
Or
I would say
that
you could
core
say another
premise?
dimension.
Okay.
It's yeah, it's kind of a combination of that and then just like I don't know, maybe something like Attack on Titan where it's kind of like these remnants of human society that are still left trying to scrape out a living against really hard circumstance because the demons are definitely super powerful and kind of unavoidable in a lot of ways. Um, but
It's
yeah,
super
it's fun.
powerful. Like, are they like kind of like the Lovecraft, like they're ephemeral, or they're, you know, are they like bulletproof? I mean, why are they so hard to kill?
Yeah, I mean, and the characters in this story. So the characters in the story in Rain Shadows, that story is called the All the Colors of the Sea. But they are stuck on a ferry, so like a Washington State ferry, and they're still traveling around the Sound and stuff. They are basically a merchant caravan in this post-apocalyptic world. But the
Oh, awesome.
water,
So
yeah, it's fun.
the people on the boat or the ferry or whatever, like
Hmm.
it's an apocalyptic or post-apocalyptic world, and they're trapped on this thing with demons.
So the demons they deal with primarily are the water based demons, and so every night they only come out at night, and they have to seal up every entrance. They have to seal up the bathrooms, anywhere where water can get in from outside. They have to like be really protective of that at night, and then they only let people go outside during the day or when they're loading or unloading the ship. So that's how they stay away from the demons, but the demons can talk to people and they're always trying to get people to open the door. So that's kind of how the story starts. They're trying to get a little girl to open the door.
Oh, so they like put on different personas and try and like fool you into like trick you into yeah. All right, that's cool. What else do you have out? Like you said, you have like a number of short stories.
Number of short stories. Um, yeah. Rain Shadows will have when that comes out in July. That will have six stories for me, and then six from my co-writer Tamra. And again, they cover all different areas, all different kinds of horror. I have a couple floating out there on the internet. I have two short story collections out. One is Bad Spirits. And another is called Blue Rare. Those are both available on Amazon. Blue Rare's all creature features from me, and Bad Spirits is a collection I edited. So there's one story from me, and then nine from nine other authors, and those are
Oh,
all
so it's more of
cryptid and
like an anthology with like a what's entitled?
Bad Spirits,
Okay.
and yeah, that one's cool. It's all creature features, all supernatural, paranormal stories, but a wide variety there too. We have one where it's like there's a restaurant in Iceland that serves mermaids as a dish.
That's a cool
Um,
concept.
it's a cool premise. We have one with a changeling, like Irish changeling mythology, but the this woman in modern times is like YouTubing her journey as an ant. But then they found out the baby's like not a human baby, so that's kind of messed up. And a wide variety of creepy, like psychological horror stories is usually what I go for.
Okay, awesome. What's that available in? Is it like a paperback,
Hmm.
Kindle? Do you audiobook or hardcover? Like, what are the formats?
Yeah, so that one is definitely Bad Spirits is paperback and ebook. I don't have an audiobook for that one. Both Blue Rare and Crevasse have audiobooks. So Crevasse is the rock climbing horror novella. That has an audiobook on Audible. And then Blue Rare, the short story collection of creature features, is also has an audiobook.
Okay, awesome. And all that stuff is available on Amazon,
Yep. Everything's on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever else you want to get your books. But
wherever fine books are sold.
yep, exactly, for the most part.
So, what do you have out right now? Like, how many different books, how many different anthologies, or whatever?
Yeah, so I mean, I release the Crypticon Seattle one every year. It's my second year doing that, so I have two editions of that out. The first one has one story by me. The rest are just from local horror authors. And the second edition, no story by me, but I edited it, and it has awesome horror stories in it. Um, So there's those two. Then I have Bad Spirits, Blue Rare. Those are two more short story collections I was just talking about. And then I have two coming out this summer. Crevasse is being re-released with a new edit, new cover, but the audiobook is still out there. That'll be available June 17th, and then July 19th, Rain Shadows comes out. So at that point, I'll have six books available. Um, and then the sequel to Crevasse is due in November, so it's probably coming out sometime really late this year or early in 2026. And that one's going to be called Cairn, like a Cairn, like the stacks of rocks that mark
Right.
trails. So yeah,
So,
then
so
that'll
the
be
one
book
that you
seven.
have an audiobook, is it like an audiobook of the old version? Like I don't know if it's like re-edited, so it's like a different text, a different storyline. Is there a big difference? And is the audiobook like the old version and the new version has quite a bit different?
I would say you wouldn't really notice probably the difference as a reader. We made largely like line edit changes and small grammatical changes, and obviously we changed the cover, so that it's going to have more of a whole series thematic kind of cover. Oh, there's my cat.
Uh, yeah, I hear my dog. I think she's throwing up. So.
Oh no,
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
always something.
okay. They always eat crap.
Oh yeah,
On something in the
absolutely.
street or whatever. But all right, do you have like a website where people can go and see this sort of stuff?
Yeah, totally. So all my stuff is available at Clay Vermulm Fiction Horror on Substack, or you can find me at www.clayvermulmfiction.com. That's my website, and then I'm on all
Spell your last
socials.
name because some people are just listening to this. They're not watching it. So like I'll put it up so everyone can see like the link on
Hmm.
YouTube. But if they're listening to it on like Apple Podcasts or something, they need you to spell it.
Yeah, totally. So it's ClayVerm as in mouse, ULM as in mouse, fiction, like writing fiction.com. So clayvermulmfiction.com.
Okay. And is it like all that you're in it, but is some of it some of them are anthologies and some are like full novels by you or novellas?
Yeah, so Crevasse is a full novella by me. Blue Rare and Other Short Stories is a short story collection all by me. It's the first one I ever wrote. And then Bad Spirits and the Crypticon Seattle anthologies have like a story by me, but the rest is by other authors, and I edited everything. Um, and then Rain Shadows in July, that one is half me and half Tamra K. Selman, split right down the middle. We each wrote six stories for it.
Okay. Do you have a preferred style of writing? Like, do you go first person, third person, present tense, past tense?
Oh, I like to mix it up. I like to challenge myself, kind of go all over the place. I mean, I like when I can write second person well, but I do find it really hard to write. But I've been on a little bit of a second person kick lately. Um, you know, it just depends on the story. I do a lot of first person in some of my shorter fiction because I feel like that allows you to zoom in really far,
Right.
and get really intimate and close. But like my novella is written in third person close, so similar to like Game of Thrones or something else with a where you're in third person, but you are close to one character every chapter. And so I have four main characters in that book, and whoever's chapter you're in, you're third person
Game of
close with
Thrones
them.
was the best thing on TV until that last season.
Ah, yeah, don't even get me started, man. I
Like
despise season 8.
I was in Scotland, and I think season 4 was out, and they had
Yeah.
billboards. Like everybody in Scotland was watching it. It was like all over the world.
Oh yeah, totally. And a lot of it was filmed in Ireland and Scotland, I believe. I
Yeah,
know for
yeah.
sure
I
Ireland.
believe
But
Ireland. Yeah,
yeah.
uh, I think they had like in a way they have like more like open mountains and everything that like small mountains and hills and stuff. But
Hmm.
no home is that. I'm not an expert on that stuff. But all right, man. So do you do like illustrated stuff? Is it mostly just like wordplay and the illustration is like limited to the cover?
Oh yeah, I don't do any kind of drawing. I was not given that ability or that gift, like you tattoo artists. Um, so yeah, I always contract out for my covers, because I have to, and I would never use AI art. But the cover on like Blue Rare, that's probably the best like selling cover I have, and that's from somebody called Micah Hackart. She's an artist from the Netherlands. And her artist page is Art of Makanda. That's
Okay.
Maquenda. She's really awesome. But she now does like metal band covers mostly, and then just her own commission artwork. But I caught her when she was kind of just starting out, and so she was willing to do book covers
You
still. It
got
was
in
awesome.
early, yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't
Um,
do it for me anymore. She quit doing book covers, unfortunately.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, probably those bands, cause the bands have like giant labels, and it was like, here you go. Like I did album covers, but I did album covers for like metalcore bands and hardcore bands, and those guys, it's like it's like trying to squeeze water out of a rock to get
Oh
like
yeah.
paid. And then when you're trying to get paid, and they go, "Oh, try the label," and you talk the label, and the label's like, "Oh, give money," and they're like, "Oh, that's what it's for. We already spent that." So yeah.
Classic.
Different story entirely, but yeah, well, I'm glad. So, what are you gonna do if she like stopped producing artwork for you?
Um, well, luckily now I've teamed up with, well, for Rain Shadows, I teamed up with Tamara K. Selman, and she's really good at putting together graphics and stuff like that. So she actually kind of designed the rough idea for our cover for that. And then we hired a professional artist named Matt Seth Barnes. He's a Portland artist.
Okay,
And
awesome.
yeah, he's great. He does lots of book covers around the industry. He does a lot for Crystal Lake Publishing, and
Okay,
he's a really cool dude. So he did that cover for us, and then my publisher for
for
Crevasse.
those who don't know, Crystal Lake is kind of a tie-in to Jason Voorhees.
Yes, it absolutely is. Yeah, and Crystal Lake Publishing is awesome. They're run by Joe Meinart, and he's been doing it a really long time. Has like 6 imprints, and they do really good stuff. Um, they have a whole community called the Crystal Lake Mastermind, where if you join it, it's like I think it's like $12 a month or something, but you get weekly classes with professional writers. You have a whole community, and you're directly connected to Joe and
I
his
feel
other
like
editors. It's cool.
I feel like Friday the 13th was kind of like a accidental great idea. Like I'd always describe Jason like the best character in the worst movies. And I
Yeah,
know
that's a
that
good point.
like somebody they knew I was a big fan, so they got me that book, Crystal Lake Memories, which
Oh
is the
yeah.
whole story of the Friday the 13th series. And the first one, I think it was Sean Cunningham as the director, and his direct quote was he said, "How can we copy Halloween and not get sued?" Because Hollywood is making so much money. So in the first one, he doesn't even have the iconic hockey mask or anything like that. Like he dons that in like I think it's three, like episode
Oh.
three, and then it all took off. So it's awesome. He's like this undead demon killing machine, but yeah, it's weird the way it started. They're like, how can we not get sued? This is a popular song a lot. We want to do the same thing, but with a different take enough that we can't, we won't violate the copyright.
Yeah, oh, that's I didn't know that. That's an interesting tidbit, though.
But it's kind of it's almost like like all those people that were like down in horror because they're like at least like juvenile delinquency and all this stuff. If you watch like all the Friday the 13th movies, they're kind of like morality plays. Like you have sex, you get killed. You do drugs, you get killed.
Hmm. That's true. And they are very illustrated of like what the morality and the structure around that was for the time. And
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
continued to evolve like going forward with all the remakes. So it's an interesting journey you can take through the slasher realm if you really want to. They all go back pretty far and keep going. So
Would you say that the stuff that you write is like more like is a tale with horrific elements as opposed to like slasher or splatterpunk or something like that?
it's definitely not like in the extreme horror realm or even the slasher realm. I definitely focus more on terror from the inside out. I think like the terror is often more internally focused. I think on what the character is psychologically going through, as opposed to a slasher chasing them. Now that said, there's usually like supernatural creatures that are very real and definitely very dangerous. Like in Crevasse, they're definitely being hunted by something that is stronger, faster,
Yeah,
meaner
I
than
think
them.
stuff like that is a lot stronger and has more of an appeal. Like stuff by like King or like Matheson or like
Hmm.
Neil Gaiman. It's like there's it's a dark tale, but it's not like gore in your face.
Yeah, it's definitely none of my stuff is gore in your face. I don't have a whole lot of gore in general. Probably the bloodiest story I've like written for a while, and I don't like focus on the blood, but I would say if you were to make it into a movie, it would have the bloodiest scene is that one on the ferry when, when the horror starts to
When things
happen.
go
It gets pretty
wrong.
bloody. Yeah.
All right, so the last question, I want to keep you here all night, but the last question is you said like there's a horror society that you're the head of. It's like
Mhm.
or you're one of the heads of, I'm not sure, but it's in Seattle. Why don't you talk about, a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. So it's the HWA, the Horror Writers Association.
Okay.
It's an international organization of horror writers, publishers, filmmakers. Um, it does a lot of things for the horror community. I mean, it helps us fund events. It has a union. It can provide you with health insurance. But kind of the biggest thing it does is it puts on the Stoker Con every year, named after Bram Stoker
Oh
of
yeah, no, I've been
Dracula.
to that a number of times. Yeah.
Oh, you've been to StokerCon. Cool. So
Yeah.
they put it on. That's
It
them. And
depends on what
then
it is because they switch like states. So when it's close by, I'll go there. Like I went to the one in I think it was in Pittsburgh. It was in PA somewhere.
nice.
But the next one was in California. I'm like, I'm not flying out to California for that.
Yeah, I just went to that one last year, actually, the one in San Diego, and then next year it's in Stamford, Connecticut. So that might be
Uh,
closer to your
I
neck of
could
the
go to that
woods.
one. Yeah, I'm in New York, so Connecticut is like an hour and a half for me. So
You should
I
come.
think the Pittsburgh one was or where was it? Where was it in PA?
Yeah, I think it was Pittsburgh 2 years
Yeah,
ago, 3 years ago.
I
Yeah.
mean, Pittsburgh, from where I am, like people don't know how big PA is. That
Yeah.
was like a 6 hour ride, but
Right.
Connecticut is like way closer.
Nice. Yeah. So, and I think it was Denver before Pittsburgh, something like that. But it tends to jump east, west, east, west. Um,
Okay,
and so that's the HWA that puts that on. And then at at StokerCon they give away the Bram Stoker Awards, which is
right.
basically like the Grammys of horror writing. Um, there's the Bram Stoker, the Shirley Jackson. Those are kind of the two biggest awards you can win as a horror author.
What I
Um,
noticed at SilverCon was I noticed it's more like for the writers than the
oh
readers.
yeah, yeah,
So I went there and I had a table there, and I was like, "There's not that much traffic. It's not that busy." Then I did a panel, and it's like slammed.
oh yeah, totally. That's the magic there is getting on a
Yeah.
panel for sure. Um, But yeah, so I am the program coordinator for the Seattle branch. So there's the two co-chairs that are the heads of it, and then I'm like basically on the board. We have a secretary, and then me, the program coordinator. And my job is to make contacts, organize events, schedule meetings, and book bookstores and libraries and venues for our events and then get us into big conventions like Crypticon Seattle or NorwestCon or whatever. I handle all those applications and that
Okay. Do
kind of
you do
shit.
like I notice I do KillerCon every year in Austin, Texas, and I notice what really helps there is if you do a book reading. So
Yeah,
like you'll be like selling. Okay, you do a book reading, if people like it, you sell out.
right.
Is that what you do with your commission?
Yeah, we do some of that. We do some book readings. In fact, like if you're in the Seattle area, next week we on Thursday at 8 o'clock are going to be at the Two Finger Social Club, and that is the horror bar in South Seattle. So they're a horror themed bar. They show horror movies and stuff like that. We're going to be doing a reading event there called we call it Readeroki because we all come with horror stuff to read, but I also bring stuff for like just anyone to read. So I bring snippets from movies, I bring scenes, I bring poems, I bring excerpts from short stories and novels because I found at a lot of readings like people are excited to like write afterwards or they go, I want to write something so I can read next time. So this allows
Is
like
that
even if you just
next
show up.
weekend?
That's next Thursday. Next Thursday at 8 at Two Finger
Okay.
Social.
Okay. I'll make sure I'll put you on the headline. So like this will debut like Wednesday night. So the
Sweet.
next day will be your event.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so it's anyone can
And
come
tell
read.
us the address for that.
Oh man, I don't have the address off the top of my head. Let me look it up.
So what's the name?
Two Finger Social.
Okay.
And
And
it's a horror bar in Seattle.
okay, awesome.
So the address is 9211 Del Ridge Way, Southwest Seattle.
Okay, awesome. And how long does it last? Like how many hours does the event run?
Two. They would go from 8 to 10. I mean, if people were still like having a great time and reading every 5 minutes, then we'd keep it going. But like usually it's pretty ran its course by like 10 and then we just hang out.
Okay. And were you planning on traveling for any conventions this year? Like
Um so I live
AuthorCon or
in
SugarCon or Scares of Cares or anything like that?
Yeah, so I live in well, I live on the Washington Peninsula, which is about like 2 hours west of Seattle. So I travel for everything a little bit that I'm doing in Seattle. I'm kind of out in the boonies, and then I am going all the way across the country to StokerCon this year. So if you come over to Connecticut, I can meet you.
Yeah, I'll probably see you this year.
Nice.
Like I said, that's real close. So I can just ride there, which is way better. It costs so much money to like ship all the boxes of books and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. So
But
yeah, I'll be traveling to that one, and then I usually also go home to my home state of Montana and do Authors of the Flathead in Kalispell, Montana.
okay, what is that?
It's like a 3 day writing workshop. They bring in a couple agents, so you can set up a pitch to an agent, and then they do lots of workshops and lots of writing classes and things like that.
Okay, I remember I did the World Horror Convention one year. It was done in Austin, Texas, and they had that. They you pitched to a lot of agents. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when I went to SugarCon, there were agents that came up and talked to me, but they didn't have like a pitch. There
Yeah,
wasn't like a pitch session.
right. Just a couple that I met on the side. And you can schedule agent pitch sessions at StokerCon, but you have to go in and specifically do that.
Yeah,
And I
okay.
know they fill up really fast. I think this year, like one agent was announced and their slots were full in like 2 minutes, you know? So you definitely got to like have your eye on it if
Well,
you want to get
that's like
in.
Scarce and Harris in Williamsburg. Like that thing sells out within like minutes. Like
Oh, yeah.
they wait until a certain date and time to announce, okay, booths are for sale, and then everyone just like gets in line and he tries to grab a booth. It sells
Yeah.
out fast.
All the good ones always do.
All the good ones. All right, man. So thank you very much for doing this. Do you have anything else you want to throw out to the social sphere? Like I always ask people, I'm like, if you like this, you'll like my stuff. Like,
Hmm.
obviously it's not the same as that. Like you have your own take, but it's like, hey, if you like Stephen King or Neil Gaiman or Graham Matheson or something, that
hmm
that's kind of like the vibe that I go through.
Yeah, for sure. I would say if you like Thomas Olde Hoyvelt, if you like a little Amakatsu, then you that kind of stuff, I think you will like Rain Shadows and the other stuff I produce. Lots of creature features, folklore, psychological horror, more slow burn stuff usually. So if you're into that, come check me out. I'm at clavermullenfiction.com. And if you want to hear me get drunk and argue with other authors, you can listen to my show Fermented Fiction, which is on YouTube.
What's your single biggest pet peeve with other authors?
Oh, I
You
don't
don't have
think
to name any names or anything. I'm just wondering what the concept would be.
um, I don't know that I would say I have a big pet peeve with other authors that are, as long as they're doing the work. I think the only thing I don't like is authors who do more talking about writing than actually doing stuff out in the world. That's just a pet peeve with everything, and there's you know, that happens.
I would say if I had to pick one, And I mean, there's a bunch, so it's hard to narrow it down. But if I had to pick one, I hate when the whole thing happens. It turns out it was just a dream, or it was
Yeah.
just in their
Oh,
mind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, if we're talking about actual like in a story, I thought you were talking more about like um
Well, it could
as
be
like a
anything. Yeah.
personal level, but yeah. I agree. It was all a dream is the worst. The other another story pet peeve of mine is when dialogue is just exposition pretending it's people talking, but
Right.
nobody talks
It
like
doesn't sound real.
yeah, yeah. People don't like outline what they're doing and what they're feeling, what their plan is like most of the time. It's just not how people talk unless like the situation very specifically calls for it. So that's more of a story pet peeve, I would say.
I think a lot of people talk shit about Stephen King, but I think that's his greatest strength is his dialogue.
Mhm. I agree. He's a master of that.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much. Did you have anything else you want to throw out there?
No, I appreciate you, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show.